it is my pleasure to be with you. Here we are, New York City. I've heard about this experience for many years. Every year, Nikki would come back and share with us the wonderful things that were going on here in New York City, and saying it's impossible to describe, but it didn't stop her attempt. Last year, my wife Paula came for the first time, and she was literally overwhelmed by the experience of worship, the remarkable ministry of so many of you whom she met, admired, and came to love. And I'm deeply honored this year to be here for Spread Truth's 25th anniversary year. Now I teach, as Nikki said, I teach philosophy and Christian apologetics at Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Illinois. I'm also involved in a grant-funded program that I'd like for you to be aware of. Many of you hopefully received a little card with the web address. It's called Room for Doubt. And it's not that we're encouraging people to end up in doubt, but what we have discovered is that so many people, adults and youth in churches, just feel like it's not an appropriate place to ask questions and to express doubts. In fact, over a third of church young people say that church is not a place where they feel that they can express their deepest questions and doubts. And so what this program is doing is trying to change the atmosphere in churches and among Christians to let them know, you know what, it's okay to have questions. It's all right to have tough doubts. The most dangerous doubt is unexpressed doubt. And so we do a number of things. We do have a 6-week series, so those of you in churches or small groups might consider the topics that we cover in this just basic core Christian beliefs. The upside of doubt we begin with, and then some of the other primary core beliefs. And we've had some good people involved in helping us produce this series. Lee Strobel contributed a couple of messages, Mark Minelberg, our executive producer, and Gary Poole, who wrote almost all of Strobel's small group curriculum. Those are the 3 guys that helped us produce this 6-week series. So we've got some good quality material, and we think we've got some really good stuff on our website. One of the things that we allow and encourage is for people to submit questions on our website, and then we will respond to them. So one reason why I want you to be aware of that is because you will hopefully be able to share that. If you're talking to somebody who has some questions, maybe you don't have enough time to go into details, or maybe you don't feel comfortable enough to share with them some helpful responses, just point them to roomfordoubt.com, and that will get them to that particular location. Now let me let you know this particular address right here is yeah, that one. If you go to roomfordoubt.com/nyc18.html, that's a page that I have just for you folks. Okay, you can't link to it anyplace else. But if you have questions that come up during the week, just send me an email address. I've got the link on that particular page. I'll provide some responses to it. I've got a couple of resource items there for you to take a look at as well. So point some folks in our direction, will you? And we will be ready to go. Well, here we are in New York City, and I have the great privilege of bringing to you some encouragement today. To remind you of how blessed we are to serve a God who is mind-blowingly great, truly good, and full of grace. A message that we are all going to share this week, because I want to emphasize this point that God is the God of the universe and of New York City. And I want you to take that encouragement with you. You've come this week because of one driving motivation: to share the news, the good news about the one and only God who is great and good and full of grace. Let me open the curtain for you and let you see a little bit about the God whom you are serving this week. First of all, I want you to understand and communicate to folks today and the rest of the week, He is the only God. The very first verse that starts the grand story of Scripture is Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 10 times in that first chapter, it tells us that God says something. He speaks. Let there be light. Let there be the expanse. Let the waters be gathered, etc. Now, in the ancient world, there were other gods and goddesses who spoke, and presumably who spoke things into existence. The Egyptian cosmology had the basic idea, among others, that the god Ra creates humanity from his tears. There's a Babylonian epic called the Enuma Elish, in which Marduk splits the goddess Tiamat in half to create the heavens and the earth. There's a separate Babylonian account in which God spits into clay to create humanity. Now, some years ago, I coined a little poem of sorts after the general tenor of Dr. Seuss, entitled, "I am God, says God I am." And it goes like this. This is God I am. I did not strain, I did not strive, I am the only one alive. I was not split, nor did I spit. From me alone the sky was lit. I am not sun or sky or ram, though I will give a little lamb. All the others are just a sham. We are but one, says God I am. He alone is God. And this week you will encounter people who deny that this God exists, or who claim that they have a different God. You might even encounter some people who think they're God. But this God is the God of the universe and of New York City. As the psalmist puts it in Psalm 100, New York City, know that the Lord Himself is God. He made us and not we ourselves. And that is God's story, which is our story for New York City this week. Secondly, I want you to emphasize that God is great. Again, in chapter 1 of Genesis, we see the beginning in a narrative that is stunning in its simplicity and its succinctness. In verse 3, God says, let there be light in the expanse, and He talks about the two great lights, and then He mentions the stars also. In fact, when He talks about the stars also, there's not even a Hebrew verb in that verse. It's almost as though the writer is saying, no, He created the great lights, one to rule the day and one the night, and the stars also. Yeah, and the stars also. The major point for all of us is that God made it all, from great to small, and it is truly great. The ancient Hebrews were amazed at God's creation, but they did not know that the earth had about a 25,000 mile circumference. By the way, that's 88 million cubits, if you're counting. They did not realize that the moon was not just there to govern the night, but the moon was there to provide a gravitational attraction that keeps the orbit and the rotation of the earth at approximately 23.5 degrees and keeps it stable enough for us to sustain life over vast periods of time. They did not comprehend what was involved when God said, let there be light. They did not know that light travels 186,000 miles per second, approximately. They did not know that visible light that they would think about consists of just 1/trillionth of 1/trillionth of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. The Hebrews knew about many of the planets, of course. They knew about the sun, that celestial object that ruled the day. But they did not realize that the sun is just one star among over 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone. They did not realize that the galaxy in which we live is so huge it would take light 100,000 years, by the way, at the speed of light, to go from one side of the Milky Way galaxy to the other. If you want to know about where the sun is, that's about where the sun is, and that brings the question to me, where is Waldo in all of this? And if you look real carefully, Waldo is up there, but I'm going to help you out just a little bit. See, there he is. So you can keep Waldo in mind. They did not know about other galaxies. In fact, we didn't know about other galaxies until the late 1920s. Now we understand that there are over 200 plus billion galaxies. Now they knew about Pleiades and Orion. In fact, Amos in Amos 5 makes reference to these features of the celestial world, but they didn't realize about all those galaxies. Every spot you see in this particular screen is not a star, it is an entire galaxy. The Andromeda galaxy is the closest one to us, estimated at 2.5 million light years away. The Whirlpool galaxy, in all of its splendor, estimated at 31 million light years away. Then there is the Sombrero galaxy. You have any idea why they call it the Sombrero galaxy? Let me give you a hint. And New York City thinks it's great. But we are here to proclaim the story that God is great. He is God of the universe and of New York City. God is also good. Again, looking at Genesis chapter 1, the word good in English is used 7 times in that chapter. The light's good, the dry land, vegetation, and then finally after he creates all of humanity, it is very good. All of creation shouts of his greatness and his goodness. The psalmist says in Psalm 19, every day the heavens declare the glory of God. The earth shows the work of his hands. They speak in language that cannot be heard, but is so deafening to the one who is listening. His goodness is also mentioned in Romans chapter 1. Since the creation of the world, God clearly revealed his eternal power and divine nature. His goodness allows us to see the beauty of nature. His goodness has given us the wonders of water itself. His goodness is displayed in such capacities as the human eye. And since I've had 2 retina detachments and 3 eye surgeries, I know a little bit about the function of the eye in an existential sense, let's say. Has automatic focus, automatic iris adjustment. They clean themselves, and they are aimed by your thoughts and intentions. His goodness is expressed in the amazing function of the DNA molecule that is in every cell, in every living thing. You see on screen here reference to a recent study that claims that DNA has such storage capacity for information content that all of the world's knowledge, every bit of it throughout human history and now, could be put in DNA and housed in one room. Amazing. This DNA in every cell in your body, if it were stretched end to end, would stretch out to be 113 billion miles long. Each one of them in your cell is 6 feet. You've got about 100 trillion cells in your body. You do the math. It's enough to stretch back and forth from the earth to the sun 610 times in your body. When it came to life, the atheist cosmologist Fred Hoyle estimated that the chance of life mere chance of life starting on earth is 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power, which is a mind-blowingly figure when you understand that all of the elementary particles in the visible universe are only 10 to the 80th power. My friends, it was not accident. In fact, Fred Hoyle himself says a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics and chemistry and biology, and there's no blind forces worth talking about. And that is the good story that we're going to share with New York this week. New York City. The psalmist wants you to know, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. For the Lord is the Lord of the universe and of New York City, and He is also full of grace. You know the story. A God who is great, a God who is good would be dreadful for us if He were not also good. Because we are broken and cannot fix ourselves. Whether we are on a playground this week or in a park, whether we are on Wall Street or a worn down street, we have all sinned. And God could be great. He could be great and good, but if He's not full of grace, we're in trouble. The song pierces my heart. Who am I that the Lord of all the earth would care to know my name, would care to feel my hurt? It's not because of who you are or because of what you've done. It's because of who God is. Amen. His grace still amazes me. His love is still a mystery. It's deeper, it's wider, it's stronger, it's higher than anything my eyes can see. His grace does not only forgive us, it empowers us. His grace was demonstrated throughout the biblical story. He started with just 2 to fill the earth. Then He saved 1 family to replenish the earth. He chose 1 family in Abraham to bless all nations. He chose a small nation of slaves to share His covenant. And then He empowered them to take the promised land, even though they looked like, they themselves looked like grasshoppers in their sight. His grace empowered a young boy, David, to defeat the giant. And we've got the New York Giants here, I understand. They're among the richest and the brightest in the world, and this week you're probably going to feel like a grasshopper in their sight. His grace chose just 12 to lead the charge with the story of Jesus. You see, throughout the story of Scripture, God is reminding us that what He will accomplish this week is not by your power nor your passion. It is not by your giftedness nor your gumption, but it is by His greatness, His goodness, and His grace. The psalmist, God through the psalmist wants to say, lift up your heads, O gates of New York City, that the King of glory might come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. You see, the meekness of God is greater than the might of New York City. And the might of God is greater than the mess of New York City. And the strength of God is greater than the sin of New York City. And that's God's story, which is our story for New York City. He is the God of the universe and of New York City. His Son said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. And that includes New York City. We are in New York City. Land of the giants. Start spreading the news. You're leaving today. Ah, yeah, you want to be part of it. New York. New York. Your wandering shoes. They're longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York. New York. But you want to wake up with a God who doesn't sleep and find that He is King of the hill. He is top of the heap. You see, my friends, right here in New York City, the message is this: if God can make it all out there, He can make it anywhere, including New York City. And may you trust every moment in His greatness, in His goodness, and in His grace. May God be with you.